Welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. Today's episode, we are going to be discussing the Chris Hemsworth movie Extraction, exclusive to Netflix. It came out a couple weeks ago, and we're going to talk about it. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that you guys can go to saltynerd.com and view all of our content there, or saltynerdpodcast.com, which will take you directly to our iTunes. And last but not least, Salty Nerd Club. If you feel like you want to support this podcast, you can go to saltynerdclub.com. That takes you straight to our Patreon account. Moving forward, we're going to be discussing Extraction with our fantastic co-host that we have here, Matt Kadish. What's up, man? How you doing?
Not much. Ready to talk about Chris Hemsworth for however long we're going to do this.
Juju, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Very welcome. Blah, 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 blah. Very welcome. Welcome to the show. Matt Vader, the Dark Lord himself. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Can't wait to talk about THORWICK. THORWICK, awesome.
That's what this movie should have been called.
This is a
THORWICK.
freaking awesome movie.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it right out the bat. This movie freaking had me hooked from like beginning to end. It was fantastic. And where the freaking hell did Chris Hemsworth learn how to act so well? Holy crap. That was like this is the best acting I've ever seen from him. Like he's in the Marvel movies as Thor and stuff, and he's got some cool things, but he's Thor. He's always kind of on that level. But this, I don't know, man. He pulled out all the stops for this. He had some serious anger. He's had some pain behind those eyes.
A lot of depth.
That's tons of depth. That scene where he was talking to his kid, or that kid about his kid, it was like I cried. I don't know about you guys, but I cried.
I thought his performance in Star Trek was Oscar worthy. So
as what was his George Kirk?
He was Kirk's father.
Yeah.
So basically, Extraction is the new Netflix original film starring Chris Hemsworth. It's about a kind of mercenary soldier for hire who gets hired to extract this drug lord's kidnapped son from captivity and get him out of Bangladesh. And a lot of things go wrong, a lot of double crossing happening. And basically he has to make a decision of whether or not he wants to try and save this kid or if he wants to abandon him. Mm-hmm. And I just got to say, this movie was incredible. I don't know what Netflix is doing, but the last couple Netflix original movies that we've watched have been really good. And this movie, so it was produced by the Russo brothers, who, for those of you who are Marvel fans, might recognize them. They were the directors of Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, and Avengers: Endgame. And this was actually based on a graphic novel called See You Dad by Andy Parks.
I was wondering if you were going to be able to pronounce that.
Yeah. And basically the Russo brothers came up with the story for the graphic novel, and they produced this movie. And I think it was Joe Russo was the primary screenwriter for the film. And the director of this, his first-time director, this was his directorial debut.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow, talk about a freaking hit it out.
Yeah, his name is Sam Hardgrave, and he was the stunt coordinator on Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, which means that in addition to planning out all the stunts, he also did some second unit photography. And he was the stunt double for Captain America in all those movies. And in this movie, he played the sniper G.
Yeah,
who ends up, getting
spoiler
killed.
alert.
Yeah, he ends up getting killed early in the movie. But funny enough, like if you look at some of the behind the scenes footage of this, so one of the cool things about this movie was it has like a 11-minute and 30-second single shot action scene, and he was the guy who was strapped to the front of the cars holding the camera as they raced around, and he was the one filming it all. And I mean, it was absolutely crazy.
I watched the behind the scenes footage, and I didn't know that was the actual like director. I thought he was just one of the camera guys, but if that's the dude, like that's one of the hardest working directors I've ever seen. Like they were literally they strapped him to a Ford Focus, and then followed the action that we see in the movie where Chris Hemsworth was being chased by all the police and by a bunch of terrorists and all this other stuff. And like this dude is just like buckled to the front of this car, and they're hauling ass. Like if anything goes wrong, this dude's getting squished. And I was amazed. Like I thought that was just like a camera guy dude, or like a stunt camera guy, but no, that's the actual full-on director. Wow, and, good for him, man.
And actually, fun fact, both Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis were approached for the role that Chris Hemsworth ended up taking.
Who again?
Really?
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce
Oh,
Willis.
come on. They're
They're like
far too old.
70.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why they passed on them is because they are too old. But
Yeah.
like originally they were the top two considered for the role of Rake. So,
Oh, thank God that didn't happen. Sorry, Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis stopped caring like 20 years ago. Can you imagine him in this movie? It would just be the laziest freaking thing I've ever seen. No, freaking Chris Hemsworth knocked it out of the park with this, man. The stunts in this movie were just absolutely insane. They were incredible.
I love this new style of action movie that we're getting out of Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
With
the Jon Wick style.
Yeah.
Yeah, the close up, like
Just
really
the
highly
the
choreographed.
in your face, close quarter combat.
Yeah.
Like in that 13 or 11-minute scene where you just see Chris Hemsworth like shooting guys point blank, like right underneath their armor and stuff. And like
I don't know if I would put this on the same level as a John Wick movie. It's 90%. It's not 100% John Wick, but I did appreciate the fact that he got to kill somebody with a rake
and his
in
name,
the movie.
and
And
his name is Rake.
If they make more of these, he has to kill somebody with a rake in
Every
every
time.
movie.
Yeah.
Has to be done.
Okay.
Just
noted.
And it is interesting how like he'll come in and he'll just basically kill everyone in the room, and then there'll be like a kid, and he'll just beat the crap out of the kid and let him go.
Well, I don't know. That first one, he let him go. Like, get out of here, kid. You're not going to do anything. Like, that was actually a pretty powerful moment where this young, like, underfed, malnourished kid was sitting there just clicking the gun, but there's no ammo in it, so it just goes click, 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 click over and over again.
And
sounded like I was saying clip
he
when I
has
did that.
mercilessly killed, but just run through everyone else in that room.
And he saves the kid, or not save, but he spares
well,
the kid.
that's part of his story arc.
Yeah.
It's like because he lost his son.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And that's part of his reason for
Him doing
getting
it.
attached to this kid that he's trying to save.
I
you
did
know,
like
so-
that little development where the lady was basically like, "You're the only one who would take this mission because it's basically a suicide mission."
Yeah.
And she's like, "You're just trying to die at this
Now-
point." And he didn't deny it. He was like,
So the female handler who kind of recruits him for this mission, did you guys get the sense that she was the mother of his kid? Because
No,
like when
never occurred to me.
when he was kind of telling the story to Avi, he talked about how he mentioned his wife, and I got the sense that the history that he had with the woman handler who, she was at his house waiting for him to show up at the beginning of the movie. I got the sense that she might have been, his ex, and
I did get
they just
that
kind
sense.
of worked together. And at the end of the movie, spoiler, she kind of avenges what happened to him by killing the big drug boss. So like, I felt like that was heavily implied, even though they didn't come out and say it.
That would make her reaction have more sense. Yeah, I like that.
And it would also kind of imply like why she didn't give up on him.
Right.
Because there's that history there. Funny enough, though, like in the original graphic novel, so the original graphic novel, the story is set in Ciudad Juarez, and it's about the Juarez cartel, like that's what they're going up against. But they changed it for the movie to take place in Dhaka, and in the original graphic novel, the kid Avi, who is being rescued, was a girl named Eva. So they reverse gender swapped the child for the movie, which is kind of weird. Like that's not something that you normally see. But I think they thought it might have been too close to that movie Man on Fire with Denzel Washington.
That was a fantastic
which is a fantastic movie. So like they made it a
slightly different.
a son instead of a daughter.
Speaking of the son, I wanted to talk a little bit about the younger people that were being recruited by this drug lord. I thought that was just the freaking gut-wrenchingest thing I've ever seen when they were on top of that roof.
Oh, that was brutal.
That was terrible. And the kid was screaming the whole... I was like... I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting soft because I've got kids, but I was like, holy shit. It like made me sick to see that. And then to watch this one kid who's like trying so hard to be part of this awful, awful gang, and he wants to prove himself so much. Like, and there was a comedic moment which kind of lightened it up a little bit where he gets in a fight with Chris Hemsworth, and Chris is like... he's like looking around like, what is this, the freaking Goonies from hell or something? Like, I died laughing at that point. But it was such a sad thing where these kids are so desperate in this world that they live in.
That's survival.
Just-
That's how
Yeah.
you survive in a world like that. You
bunch
have
of
to
poor
join the
orphans.
bad
He
guys.
cut his finger off. I was like,
And
oh
that's
my
the
God.
thing. He didn't just cut their fingers off. He made them do it to themselves.
Yeah, it was so jacked. Like that was such a terrible.
Very Yakuza.
It made me.
Yeah.
It made me so sick, man. I was so like, ugh. I just felt. I don't know how else to put it. I just felt terrible. But it was
gutting.
really well paid off. I felt like they used that to their advantage. That
And the great part about this movie is it was a very simple story. It wasn't like overly complicated. It was basically like, he's got a job to do. The job goes bad. He chooses to get the job done anyway. And all like the character development and the backstory, like it wasn't anything revolutionary or too deep, but it was good enough to do what you needed to do. And this kind of just reminded me of those classic good action movies that we hardly ever get anymore.
yeah.
Because it was about like the action. The action in this movie was freaking phenomenal. And the story was good enough to carry the action forward. And like I said, like there's a lot of, kind of comparisons to John Wick here. And it's because like it's the same type of very simple story with really good characters and, really great payoff. And it was just a very well done action film.
Yeah, simple yet well done, and it carries the movie really well. And the action, like you said, it's been a while since I've seen a movie that was this good.
I think it kind of slowed down a little bit in the middle
I think that was on purpose. Though.
When,
You kind of need a break.
when Hopper showed up.
Oh, Hopper! Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
David Harbour.
David Harbour shows up, and he's kind of like the CIA handler type guy.
No,
He's like
he's
safe
an
house.
ex-mercenary
Okay.
who owed Thor a favor. And so he took him and the kid in.
Jude, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that it's pretty telling of the times of that we're living in, the times of movies, I guess, that we're living in when we lose our minds over a story that's just good enough. And I don't mean that facetiously. I mean like anymore. There's just these big blockbusters that come out and there's just so much wrong with it. And we're pissed off about a storyline that doesn't make sense or about a character that does something unlike them. So for just a good writing of a movie that makes sense and doesn't do anything that pisses us off,
And we're like,
we
"Oh
all
my
lose our
God."
minds
Yeah.
over it. Yeah. I would love to see more of that where directors and producers and writers and studios don't do things just for the sake of doing things, just to make sense.
Compare this movie to another Netflix action movie, Six Underground.
Ugh.
All right. Both have
Must we keep talking about 600?
both have
It's a
amazing
good benchmark for like how low you can go.
but both have really amazing visuals to them. And both are action movies, both are Netflix originals, but the quality of Extraction is so much greater
Yeah.
than something like Six Underground.
It feels like the makers of this movie respected their audience more than the makers of Six Underground. I felt like when they were making Six Underground, they were like,
Who cares?
nobody will notice.
It's just an action movie.
Yeah.
I think Six Underground was over the top on purpose.
Well, it's a Michael Bay movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's exactly. I got exactly what I thought I was going to get out of that movie, and I didn't know what we were going to get out of this movie. What I feel like they're doing now is we're getting like a retread. We're getting the new versions with these new action stars of all these cool old action flicks that we used to have back in the 80s and early 90s. Hemsworth has now become the new Schwarzenegger or somebody like that. And I hope they keep making these movies because we got John Wick, we got Six Underground or whatever. What's it called?
Extraction.
Extraction, and other movies like this. And I watched an interview yesterday, and they're working on other movies that are going to be in this same genre. There's this whole little cadre of ex stunt coordinators who have become directors, and they're notching things up in Hollywood with this kind of thing. So
Yeah, and you also have the Russo brothers who have proven themselves to be like phenomenal filmmakers. And there was one character in this movie, the character of Saju, who was kind of like the ex-Indian Special Forces guy.
Oh, that guy was amazing.
Who played the direct antagonist, where he basically created this double cross because they couldn't afford to hire these guys to actually extract Avi, the kid. And so like he's trying to kill all of Hemsworth's team so he can get the kid back without paying the mercenaries. And he's basically like the main direct antagonist in the film, whereas the drug kingpin is kind of like the overarching antagonist. And his fights with Hemsworth were just like freaking amazing. But this movie actually takes the time to introduce you to Saju and his family and his motivation. And the Russos did something very similar with Thanos in the Avengers movies, where they showed you enough about the bad guy to make you actually care about them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And made it believable.
Yeah, and this character Saju actually has an arc in the film where he redeems himself by sacrificing himself to save Avi at the end of the movie. So like, not only do you have a great main character in Chris Hemsworth, but you also have a great like bad guy in this character. And so few films actually bother to show that stuff, because their fight in the middle of the movie was next level amazing. And then to see them come together and be like, okay, now we have to work together. Was even like more satisfying, because you just saw like how hard these guys tried to kill each other.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. Yeah, it was really good.
And Saju was arguably just as much of a badass as THORWICK.
For sure.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy that. And Saju, this character that you at first you just assume that he's just like the generic action movie bad guy, but then they take, like you said, they take the time. They have this guy sit down and talk to his son on the phone.
Yeah, it calls his family.
Yeah, it calls his family. His son's doing homework and he's talking to him.
He loves him.
It was freaking heartbreaking. You're going to make me cry just talking about it? I'm going to do a full... I told you the whiskey was going to do it to me. It was like watching this dude who, up until this point, you were like, oh, he's just the generic bad guy. He's the guy who's fighting up against Chris Hemsworth. Oh, no, he's a human being. And he has all these like emotions. And I was like, oh my gosh, they really pulled it off. And then like, the team up at the end is like, freaking hoorah moment.
Yeah.
And when he dies at the end, you're like I don't know about you guys, but when I saw him, finally, bite it, the only thing I could think of was like, oh, he has a son.
Yeah.
It was awful. And it made it so tragic.
It did. Yeah. The whole thing was tragic.
And then when Hemsworth gets the bullet through the neck from the kid that he let go.
Dude, what a payoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was so tragic, but it felt appropriate.
It kind of did, didn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
So I want to ask you guys, what do you think about the ending where it might have been Rake in the background when he came up?
Oh, totally.
From air?
Well, you got to set up a sequel, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he survives.
For sure.
I hope he does. I mean, this is kind of like part of that. Like we talked about Spencer Confidential. We talked about Jon Wick. Like these dudes take some serious punishment that any normal human would just be a blubbering fool on the ground. But this is an action movie, so of course these guys are going to be like over the top badasses. But I do think that when we see, what's the kid's name? Avi. When we see Avi come up out of the pool and you see just this kind of blurred figure in the background, I'm 100% on. Like, that's Chris Hemsworth.
And they had that great line in the middle of the movie where Hemsworth kind of tells him about his son and about how like he specifically signed up for another tour in Afghanistan so he didn't have to stick around to watch his son die of lymphoma. And that's one of the reasons why he doesn't want to abandon Avi, is because he feels like, this guilt over letting his own son die, and he doesn't want to, do it with this kid. But Avi has this quote from a Brazilian like philosopher or something like that, where he says, it's not falling into the water that drowns you, it's staying submerged. Mm-hmm. And if you notice at the beginning of the film, like Chris Hemsworth jumps off the cliff and stays submerged as long as he can before he goes up for air. And at the end of the movie,
they don't actually show him coming up either.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, Avi's doing the exact same thing. And so like there's kind of that thing where you have to make a choice whether or not you want to stay submerged and drown, or if you want to swim for the surface.
Yeah, there's so many great payoffs in this movie that just, it's subtle little things like that, subtle little things like the figure in the background. Is that Chris Hemsworth? Like the payoff with the kid who finally takes down Chris, or Rake, whatever his name was. There's so many, like you always praise movies that actually take the time to do like a proper setup and then a proper payoff. And this movie has that in spades, man.
Yeah,
it's
it
amazing.
Definitely does. And then they also have an awesome action scene at the end where they shoot down a helicopter. And all types of badass.
I wonder what the body count is in this thing.
I bet it's up there, right? We should find out.
Dude, that 11-minute like single shot action scene alone has like a body count in the hundreds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But the way that played out, I mean, like, my God.
The planning that had to go into that.
Because normally, like, the single shot stuff I feel is a little gimmicky. But watching, like, as soon as I realized what they were doing while I was watching this, I was like, oh, my God, this is really impressive.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, too. I'm, like, watching it. It's like, and they haven't, like, cut the scene in a long time.
Yeah.
I go, wait a second, they're doing the whole onesie thing here. That's pretty
onesie.
cool.
like I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Hardcore Harry,
Yes.
where it's basically like all POV single shot, like the entire movie is like a single shot. Something like that. Just when I saw it, I felt was just such a gimmick, and I didn't think it worked very well. But in this, as soon as they started doing it, like you have the camera like going into a car and then getting out of the car, and like, you know, as it's going like 80 miles per hour, and, you know, showing you all these different aspects, and then it slows down and it goes with the police who are like storming this apartment building looking for Rake and the kid, and like you don't know where they are, and you're just kind of following them, and then all of a sudden Rake shows up and just starts murdering everyone. I was just, and then the fight that he has with Saju on the street, and they both get hit by cars.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like it was just like amazingly well done. Amazingly well done.
These are no ordinary mercenaries.
No, these guys are amazing.
Good movie, man. I really enjoyed that.
It kind of reminded me of like the classic Schwarzenegger and Stallone action movies from the 80s, like just very simple, based around a personality and great action, and just giving you good stuff.
Absolutely. So this kind of goes without saying, but we're going to go around the table and say it anyway. Extraction on Netflix, recommended?
Oh, definitely. 4 stars.
Jude?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Vader?
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty good.
Recommend it.
Yep, I agree.
Should we start doing that? Should we start doing?
I would love
1
to.
to 10?
I actually have something
Oh,
that on my laptop that I want to share with you guys.
okay.
Matt's going to laugh
Is it
at
a
me.
poem?
No. It's a rating. It's a rating system.
Is it Nail and
I'll do
Palin?
my own rating system.
It's
Thank
the
you.
Salty Nerd rating system, and I think it was pretty. I think
God.
it's pretty legit.
Are each of them like a kind of salt?
No,
Okay. I give this 1 grain of salt.
no, it's not that
I
torchy.
give this one 7 grains of salt.
Anyway, all right, guys, that's it for our Extraction review. Go check it out, man. It's so worth it. If it's if you're
Great
into
movie.
action movies at all, if you miss those classic '80s action movies, this is that times 11.
This thing belonged on a big screen.
Yeah,
It really did.
100%.
Yeah.
Seeing this in the theater would have been badass.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
But you can't watch it without pants on in the theater. So
Says who? What theaters do you go to?
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, you guys can go to saltynerd.com and check out all of our previous content. Or if you would like to like and subscribe, go to saltynerdvideo.com. We have all of our YouTube clips there. And everything's peachy keen. Thanks so much for listening to us. Signing off real quick, Matt Vader, where can they find you on the socials?
Oh, my turn? Matt Vader 74, Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram.
Right on. Cool. Juju, where can they find you?
I am Juju on Instagram and Twitter, and at Salty Nerd Video on YouTube.
Right on. And Matthew Kadish, where can they find you?
At Matthew Kadish on Twitter. That's Kadish. And kadishbooks.com if you want to check out my books on Amazon.
Right on. All right, everybody. Don't forget, we release new episodes every week on the Salty Nerd podcast. And Sundays and Mondays are new episodes.